and thank you for joining us today. My name is Stephanie Singer, and I am an ANJEE board member. We are excited to have you with us for today's workshop, Growing for Change, the Impact of School Gardens, as part of ANJEE's 38th Annual Winter Conference. A special thank you to our conference sponsors, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, an anonymous donor who is a friend of science and environmental education, New Jersey, and the Institute for Natural History Arts. We'd also like to thank our keynote sponsor, Nigerian Associates, and our award sponsor, Duke Farms and BASF, for supporting our field experiences for this conference. We are placing a link to our YouTube channel in the chat room where you can see all of our recorded content from the past conferences and forums. And we hope you subscribe to ANJEE's YouTube channel. A few reminders for this session before we begin. We ask that everyone keep themselves on mute for the presentation. If you do have questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat room, and there will be time for live questions toward the end of the presentation where you can either raise your hand, use the hand raising icon, and we'll let you ask your questions then. So welcome our hosts. We have Patrick Evans, Julie Sienkiewicz, Pablo Verissimo, and Bridgette Byrd from the Greater Newark Conservancy. They are our presenters today. And we will hear stories from the Food Corps service members serving at Greater Newark Conservancy in Newark, New Jersey. And they make a difference by educating their community on the power of food. And through school gardens, they're able to educate where our food comes from, how it grows, and provide nutritious taste test opportunities to their students to try new dishes. So without further ado, take it away.
Yes, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. So my name is Patrick Evans, and thank you everyone for coming out to this program this evening. The title is Growing for Change, the Impact of School Gardens. So I'll be starting off first, and then later towards the end, we'll hear from our amazing Food Corps service members, Bridgette, Julia, and Pablo. So in today's workshop, just a little agenda for what we'll be hearing about and learning. So I'm gonna give a nice little introduction to what Greater Newark Conservancy is, the history, and some of the programs we offer and the work we have been doing around Newark. Then I'm gonna introduce what is Food Corps, since we're gonna be hearing from the Food Corps service members and the work that they do, just in case you haven't heard about their program through AmeriCorps yet. And then I'm gonna go over the importance of school gardens and the reasons why we do the work that we do. And then the end will be where I'll let our panelists shine, and we'll have our 3 Food Corps service members talk about their experiences as a Food Corps service member for the past year or 2. So just a quick intro about Greater Newark Conservancy. So we have been in operation for about a little over 35 years now, and recently we welcomed on our newest executive director. Her name is Natasha Dyer, and she is pictured right here below. And with her, a new amazing leadership comes a new vision and a new mission statement with that. So I'm just going to quickly read our newest mission statement that we have. So the mission of Greater Newark Conservancy is to foster collaboration in our community at the intersection of environmental, food, and racial justice to promote the health and well-being of all Newark residents. Since 1987, our programs have worked to reverse the long history of systemic racism, to improve social determinants of health by expanding access to green spaces, nutritious food, wellness education, and youth development for residents with little to no access to such resources. And once we hear from the Food Corps service members later on, you'll see exactly how our mission aligns with the work that we do. So me, I serve as the farm to school coordinator within the education department, and the Food Corps service members are also in the education department. So that is where we have all the fun of connecting with the students and families that are connected through Greater Newark Conservancy. And our Food Corps service members are paired at 5 elementary schools, and that's where they get, we're like putting them straight in the classroom. They're teaching kids how to do, how to garden, how to cook really fun recipes, and we'll hear about that soon. And then we also work with about 5 to 7 more schools, elementary and high school, that they don't although have Food Corps service members and educators, but they do have a nice substantial school garden program, whether it's an indoor hydroponic system or an outdoor school garden or both. We do support them with providing them resources and anything they need, whether it's soil, plants, seed, knowledge, or help with any type of event or workshop. During the summer, this is where we also host our Newark Youth Leadership Project. And this is very important with our school garden program because during the summer is obviously when a lot of schools are not around anymore. There's no more staff. They may not have a summer program. So a lot of school gardens tend to go watered or maintenance or anything like that. So our college and high school interns come into really come in a beneficial way because they are making sure our gardens are watered, they're harvesting, they're weeding, they're seed saving, they're doing everything they can to make sure that once the summer is over and our students are back in the schools and back in the school gardens, that they have something to be excited to see and not just a dried up garden. So they're a huge help during the summers, especially this past summer where it was really hot. And we also host a bunch of field trips to the Conservancy. So if you don't necessarily have a food corps service member in your school, we have a whole bunch of students come to us where we do a lot of programs around urban habitats, mammals, garden education, nutrition education, you name it, we do it all. And on top of all that other fun stuff that we do, we also host a bunch of fun family programs. One of them we just did recently, our second Saturday Family Adventures, where that's all about outdoor nature-based education, whether we're learning about bird watching and creating pinecone bird feeders, or what we did this last weekend with Bridgette and myself, where we taught how to properly and safely make a campfire, and we created banana s'mores for everyone, and that was a really fun event. And we also have our Family Fun in the Kitchen program. That's where we have our vegan and our plant-based chef, Afi, come out, and she does a lot of amazing dishes like sweet potato fritters. This next week, I believe she's doing vegan chili, and she teaches all the families how to do everything from knife skills to learning how to properly use different kitchen equipment she uses for her specific recipes. And that's a lot of the main stuff we do within the education department. And like I mentioned, food corps is under the education department. So if you don't know what food corps is, they are a program under AmeriCorps, and that's where they partner with schools to nourish kids' health, education, and give them a sense of belonging. So our food corps service members work very closely with the teachers, and they work closely with the school cafeteria staff as well, making sure that students know where the food comes from, knows how it grows, and have the opportunity to taste a lot of really great fruits and vegetables through these taste tests. Now, food corps service members are focused on 3 areas of service, and we'll be hearing a lot about that later on. But I'm gonna just talk about them a little bit. So the first area is hands-on learning. So it's all about getting the kids' hands dirty, making sure they're doing everything from weeding, seeding, watering, harvesting, seed saving, composting, and that also goes to the nutrition part where they're learning everything from knife skills, using different kitchen equipment, learning safety behind stuff like that might get hot, or using any hot plates, anything like that. So we're able to bring that into the classroom and take them out to the garden. Another area of service is the healthy school meals part. So that's where we're trying to work closely with the school cafeteria staff and try and implement new nutritious recipes onto the menu, but also mainly focusing on creating a nice environment for the students to come into that cafeteria, since it can be noisy and loud sometimes, and also giving the students the benefit of a great taste test, whether it's cafeteria or in the classroom. Our service members are doing many taste tests throughout the month. Specifically this month, they're doing blueberry smoothies in their classrooms. And the last area of service is the school-wide culture of health. So that's all about using food to celebrate kids' unique cultures and identities. And we do that a lot through our taste tests, through our lessons, making sure they're culturally appropriate. And it's great to know where your students come from, their histories, their backgrounds, so you can be able to bring that into the classroom and have that lesson connect even more. So I'm just going to go quickly over the importance of school gardens, and then we're going to hear from our service members. So first reason why the school gardening programs are so important is because it can enhance academic achievement. And we have seen studies where students who have participated in Farm to School program have done better all around in their subjects. And the great thing about a school garden program is that it can connect to basically any subject out there. I did a workshop at a really big school garden conference where we were handed a specific vegetable or a seed from a different part of the world, and we were supposed to create a lesson out of it based on every single subject. And it was really, really fun just seeing how you can connect anything about a school garden and how to run it to any lesson, whether it's English, art, technology, you name it. There's something to be connected there, and it's a great way for students to have a different type of learning. And a big thing is promoting the healthy lifestyle. So as you see in these pictures below, these students for the first time were tasting butternut squash. And this was our very simple recipe of butternut squash baked with a little olive oil and brown sugar. And a lot of the students loved it, and we're able to increase the students' awareness about more nutritious fruits and vegetables that are actually super tasty, where they may have been a little shy at first to taste it. When I was a service member for 2 years, I saw students in the beginning of the year who were a little shy and trying new things and wouldn't try things. And then by the end of the year, they were asking me to basically bring in more new things for them to taste. So it's great to see that change in their lifestyles and trying to, you know, do less Takis and more fruits and vegetables. And we also, another thing, a benefit is this instilling an environmental stewardship ethic in these students. So when they're working in their garden and seeing the connections out there, they're able to understand the ecological context and see that there's a lot of importance in a lot of things we took for granted. For example, worms, where I love to teach about worms. And I know in the beginning, some of the students are like, ew, yucky, they're gross, like they don't serve any purpose. And then by the end of the lesson, while I'm showing them the importance, what they do for our earth, what they do for our food, and show them my pet worms. I have about 500 in a bin at my house. And they start to form a connection with those worms and see that there's so much importance to a lot of the bugs and stuff we see out there that we don't really connect in our minds. So we're able to make students see those connections and be able to treat nature with more respect. We're also encouraging community and social development. So if you don't run a school garden program, you may not know, but it 100% takes a whole team to run a garden. It is not easy. So we're able to have our students work together in maintaining these gardens. Our service members really rely on the students to help maintain the gardens, since some of them are very big. And as you see in some of these pictures, they do a lot of the hard work, like transferring the soil to the beds, which is something people may dread, but students love to do. And we love to see them doing that type of work and seeing the type of leadership skills. And we'll hear from one of our service members and she'll explain more on the leadership part of that. Last but not least, we want to instill a pride of place for them and allow the students to understand their place in the world and see their importance, and show them that just planting one plant, one seed, can make a huge difference in the world. And whether you're donating food or growing food for yourself or friends, there's just so much happiness and joy that can come from students seeing the fruits of the labor come to life and be able to decide what to do with it. And we have so many examples that we'll be hearing just about right now. So now I'm gonna allow my panelists to speak. We'll be hearing from our 3 service members, Bridgette, Pablo, and Julia, and they'll be sharing all about their experiences with being a food corps service member. And we have a mix of first year and second year service members. So first we have Julia, and I'm gonna stop sharing soon, but she is our only second year service member. So unfortunately it is her last year, and her first year she actually spent in DC, and this year she traveled all the way up to Newark, New Jersey to finish off her second year. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and then I'm gonna allow Julia to take over to talk about her experiences for the past 2 years.
Yeah, wow, 2 years. It has been such an amazing and ranging set of experiences. It's so lovely to be able to speak to everyone here. Please forgive my background. I commute in to Newark. It is absolute thrill from Brooklyn. So going back and forth and getting to know a community I had no previous relationship with through this kind of service has been an absolute honor. and incredibly thrilling. You know, I think one of my favorite things about food corps service is that every single day, every single week throws something new at you. It's a new kind of adventure. And one of the things that I've loved at working with Greater Newark Conservancy specifically is having a team. Like Patrick said, I'm from the DC area, and I did my first year of service with Food Corps in DC. I was hired there directly through the school once the state team was like, yeah, we want you, let's go. And then you kind of get to know different sites. It's very much a matchmaking kind of situation with Food Corps. And this year I was so thrilled to be match made, if that's the proper term, with my amazing team at Greater Newark Conservancy. It's been so lovely to have, you know, the consistent time in the office as well to just bounce so many ideas off of each other, to get to ask different questions about, okay, what's the cafeteria culture like at your school? Is it the same? And try to figure out, you know, the range of experiences and the common threads and come up with different solutions together. I think one of my favorite parts about service is finding the entry point for every single kid. You know, there are so many different ways that you can make, you know, ELA connections or math connections. Science and social studies is a little bit more obvious to gardening and to food and to all of that. But every single person has an entry point. Every single student has an entry point, often multiple entry points of interest to get them engaged with these kinds of topics. You know, I have been so blown away by how eager my students are consistently to share, you know, oh, my mom's house, we grow this. Oh, you know, my dad tries to like make us, I heard a lot of my students say when I was doing that blueberry smoothie go, oh, you know, my dad makes us smoothies. My mom's making us smoothies, trying to get us to eat healthy, making these green juices and stuff like that, which is amazing because I'm not just introducing them to something new. I'm introducing them to different approaches to something they're already seeing and observing and engaging with. I am stationed at 2 schools. So Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm at Mount Vernon, which is at one of the most diverse schools in Newark. I believe we have 25 languages represented that are spoken at home. So getting those geography and those different cultural connections to what I'm teaching has been absolutely wonderful. And I teach 2nd and 3rd grade there, and then it gets a little older throughout the week as I teach 4th and 5th grade at Lincoln. And Lincoln Elementary School is pretty unique in that, well, not unique, but it is very unique in that we have a hydroponics trailer that we've been working on setting up. And that hydroponics trailer and all of the trials and joys that go into creating that into being a classroom space, not just something that's growing food out in the back of the school that the kids really want to go in during recess, has really shaped a lot of my thinking on you know, everywhere can be a classroom space. That has been one of the biggest takeaways for me of the last, you know, year and a half so far of service, is that every single space is a potential space for learning. And, you know, thinking about what it means to have these garden spaces be outdoor classroom spaces, not just the school garden that feels a little bit distant, a little bit detached sometimes if you don't have that active engagement with it. Yeah, I've gotten, I think, a really full understanding of the range of what service can look like since last year. I was teaching as young as my little pre-K 3s, where a lesson looked like something as, all right, we're going to explore soil. Let's put your hands in the dirt. Let's get to talk about worms. And this year I'm working even with the middle schoolers at one of my schools for a student nutrition advisory committee to think about different options in the cafeteria, you know, how to create an actual sense of excitement around lunch and an excitement around celebrating different food cultures. And it's been so wonderful to see the whole range of, you know, those first interactions with these different concepts for the younger kids and what it looks like to go into much more leadership roles as the kids get older, as they start to form, you know, pretty hardcore preferences of what they like and what they don't like and what they want to engage with. It's just been, you know, such a joy to come here through the Conservancy and return to a 2nd year of service. I believe Pablo's up next.
Yep.
All right, I am next. All right, hello everyone. My name is Pablo Verissimo. I am a 1st year food education service member for Food Corps. Yeah, so I'm a little less experienced for everybody over here, but I'm starting off strong. Oh, so yeah, my brain's a little bit discombobulated. There you go. Thank you, Patrick. So I'm a little bit new to everything over here. I'm a first year Food Corps Educated Servant member. I just graduated last year. And so the way that I ended up finding out through Food Corps, because I was really interested in agriculture and food systems, and when it was being offered in Rutgers, New Brunswick, I was really interested in like, okay, how could education, like how malleable is education in New Jersey and throughout the United States? And I looked at it, I realized, wow, we have agricultural education in the state. I didn't know this is a thing that we have. And so that got me very interested and went through several different classes that talked about education regarding agriculture, gardening, botanical studies, all that. And then that led me to Food Corps, and that being recommended by my program director is like, you should give it a try. And this is what I ended up signing a whole bunch of things to get on for. And now this is my first year. And all of this interest started over the pandemic. It literally started, like, I just wanted to start gardening. I want to figure out how my food comes about and not just go to the grocery store and buy things. And it got me really interested in how the knowledge that I was already learning in college, how can I practically apply that? How is this something that people learn, how people come across this knowledge? Is it like happenstance, or is this something that we actively get to do? So, Patrick, can you change to the next slide? Okay. So you see from like the previous slides, we have a bunch of pictures, and a lot of them are from from one of the days when I was doing an outdoor cleanup at the garden at McKinley Elementary in Newark. And I was doing a cleanup where one group of students was raking the leaves and putting it into planter beds. One group of students was shoveling dirt into planter beds, and the other was also watering the plants to make sure that they get plenty of water as November started to draw to a close, to make sure that everything is all prepped and ready for me to eventually lay the bed to rest. And that was also the first time that I conducted a class taste test, which was the butternut squash smiles. And so coming at this, if you imagine me just graduated from college and now I was in this leadership position where it's like, okay, now I have to teach a bunch of students about healthy eating and also being active and all that. I was kind of thrown into the deep end, but you learn and you manage in this role. You pivot, as they say. Anything that gets thrown your way is learned to do. And one of the things I would like to echo from what Julia said is that it's just really nice to listen to what the kids have to tell you about what they learn from your lessons and what you are teaching them, such as like, you have the squash smiles and you have students talking about like, oh, squash, I have tried that before. Or like apples, okay, apples are my favorite. And like, for example, you have if you could see middle right is the fall festival. That was one of the events where, and between all of us, for all the service members, we conduct a fall festival and a spring festival where a bunch of grades from pre-K to 4th grade or 5th grade, or maybe even higher, get to participate in a school-wide event that's all about this health-conscious, student-led activity learning. And these are the type of things that us as Food Corps service members, we get support from our organization, Greater Newark Conservancy. But for the most part, we are planning these events on our own and with the help, but most of it is independently led by us, and we make it happen. So using that garden space, get students trying different apples, get students doing reading time, have students learn about bugs, have students do a scavenger hunt through the garden. The things that we do at our schools is a tremendous amount of work. And as said previously, we need students to help us make our gardens maintain and make the classroom spaces the way that they are, in addition to additional help that we have from our organization or from volunteers. So it's also a lot of, we're pulling from the community, we're pulling from the school to make what we want to do at these schools, to make these impacts so that these students are learning about where their food is coming from, enjoying where their food is coming from, make it all the more, connected. And so you could see that with the different types of photos in the upper right and the bottom right, you have students crouched over planter beds and me telling them, oh, little fun facts about kohlrabi or little fun facts about cabbage. So much so that there was this one little image with the yellow background. That is a picture that the school has posted up on a poster board when coming in through the front entrance of the school. So our impact as service members, as I find, is very strong. We're not simply a one and done job. This is a continuous thing that we keep doing. And that is something that I find very fantastic in the role that I am in. And although I'm a little bit nervous and shy here, it's a position where you get to learn to grow and you learn to project more and learn to really bring out the best qualities within you. And that's what I really appreciate about this. And getting to see the students smile and be happy, and also learning new things that they otherwise normally would not be able to. Really, really great. It's the greatest joy of my days going in and teaching those classes. All right, and now I'm gonna pass this off to Bridgette.
Yes, and just before Bridgette goes, I want to just highlight Pablo, since he is the first year, and she was very, very shy in the beginning, and I almost saw a little bit of myself when I first started as a service member. I was, it was my first real big job, and I never had the teaching experience. Most of us don't have teaching experience with little kids or anything like that, but we went into it and we made a huge impact. And although Pablo only works with 2 teachers, 6 classes, the whole entire school community knows him. When you go in that school, everyone knows Pablo. And the same goes for Bridgette, the same goes for Julia. Although they only work with a certain amount of teachers, because they can't teach every kid, they still make a huge impact throughout the entire school. So thank you, Pablo, and thank you, Julia. And I'm gonna share my screen again for our last panelist, Bridgette.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bridgette Byrd, and I am a Food Corps Education Service member along with my phenomenal team, which is Patrick, Evans, Pablo, and Julia. I'm just so happy to be part of this wonderful establishment and organization at Greater Newark Conservancy. This is my first year working with Food Corps and also with partnering with Greater Newark Conservancy. So I'm a first-year service member. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a Rutgers alumna from the Rutgers Newark University, the School of Arts and Sciences, and studied under the psychology department, and also did 2 years of grad work in the research program, which is pretty much what opened my eyes and made me a little bit more curious and wanting to get involved into sustainable and environmental solutions, particularly in the area of Newark. And some of the projects that I worked on to expand green spaces, considering Newark has a very tough terrain, it's urban, we're expanding, there's a lot of development going on, but there's a lot of loss of our green spaces and parks, and especially gardens for planting. But there are individuals that want to maintain a certain presence in urban renewal and agriculture. And we're seeing more community gardens and the expansion of parks in the city of Newark. And I wanted to be part of that movement with expanding green spaces and then having these green spaces where we can actually grow wholesome, healthy food. So I'm also a food connoisseur. I love food. I love cooking with food. I love learning about different food cultures and expanding my awareness throughout different regions and places. I like to travel and learn about new recipes and learn about how food connects us. You know, there's so much that we can all relate to and have similar shared stories of how we dine around the table with loved ones and friends. And food is part of that. You know, there's a relationship to it and to people. So my love of food and the environment is what made me more interested in wanting to be a Food Corps service member and then working along with Greater Newark Conservancy. I am assigned to 2 schools as a Food Corps service member in the city of Newark. And with these 2 schools, we co-teach with the teachers there, and we have lessons that are pretty much designed to teach food nutrition. We introduce recipes and we do taste tests in the classroom. So the top picture, you will see me here. I was actually doing a lesson where I'm actually wearing the yellow Food Corps apron. And we were working with different varieties and species of apples. So the children were introduced during the Jersey Fresh. Usually the USDA Jersey Fresh puts out produce of the month. And I wanted to talk about the different cultivars and origins of apples. And this particular class, the 4th grade class, got a wonderful lesson on the sensory. I wanted them to explore and use their senses with fruit. And there's a lot of sensory exploration that goes into how we teach these lessons. So my perception of how a Granny Smith may taste is going to be totally different from someone else's. And I like to, when going in the classroom, get kids to use their full senses to be able to see how things taste to them, what they feel like. Is it something that's similar to something that they've tasted before? Is it something that their parents or one of their guardians have used in a recipe? So it's not just tasting food, it's having a discussion about food. It's going a little bit deeper and then wanting to know, what's the origin? Where did this food come from? What area is it native to? So we like to connect not only taste, sensory, but also cultural, historical presentation. Those things need to be tied to food because there's a lot of food stories and histories that go behind our food. So having this different variety of, we had actually 7 apples that day. We had Honeycrisp, Gala, Granny Smith, Pink Lady, Macintosh. And it was nice to be able to talk about the differences of the apples, the colors, whether they were sweet or sour. And bringing this knowledge into the classroom is very good for kids to have this experience and expand their own knowledge. And another thing that we do as Food Corps service members, which is a big component for me and my core beliefs, is having kids connect with their outdoor garden spaces. So one of my schools has an outdoor garden in the front, which is pretty much on a main street. And it's very visible from the street. And what I like to do, I'm wearing the Bahamas hat and I'm working with a 2nd grade class, and we were taking seedlings and we were actually planting them into the beds. And the kids love to get their hands in the dirt. They love to get their hands in the soil. You know, having the outdoor experience and touching ground, being able to put their hands in smelling the soil, looking for insects in the soil, all this just expands the knowledge and experience and is wonderful for kids to build on these skills about learning about their environment. So whenever the sun is out, whenever it's a warm day, I like to get little ones outside in the garden. We also have the Hawthorne Avenue Farm, which is one of the biggest farms in Newark. And we have a children's garden there. And our classroom becomes the outdoor classroom in the garden or the farm. And this is where they can explore, they can discover what's growing. They learn how to cultivate, the beds. They learn how to harvest. We were able to harvest 4 different varieties of lettuce in November. And in one of our beds in our school farm, the 4th and 5th graders were able to harvest these lettuces, romaine, we had mesclun, we had different varieties, and I made a wonderful big gourmet salad, which basically was farm to school. So taking this vegetation from their school beds and then picking it with their own hands. And then, of course, after it was cleaned and everything, bringing it in and having a nice, wonderful gourmet spread where they had other vegetables with it, they were able to see that process of how food grows, where it grows, how we participated in harvesting it, and then now we're getting to enjoy the fruits of our own labor. And I think that's very important for all schools to have the connection of garden in school, as kids need to understand that, number one, we need fresh, wholesome food in our communities, particularly communities of color who are suffering from health disorders and disease, diabetes. We see the research, we see the data of how it's impacting our communities. And I know myself coming into both of my schools, when I would introduce butternut squash or kohlrabi, students had no knowledge of what these vegetables were. So there's definitely a education gap in certain areas, and we want to be able to fill that gap and that void so every child has equality of knowledge of food education. They know about food security, and they have access to good, wholesome food. And the last thing I want to say too, there's a big social and emotional component to what we do and how they learn, because it enhances each child's individual experience. So we just came out of COVID pandemic. So many children were isolated, they were tied to their screens, and they had limited connection with their peers and friends. And we're starting to see some of the impacts and effects of that in classroom learning. So as much as we can expose them to outdoor experiences and integrate these experiences with food and farm, because science should be integrated with food and farm, music, art, we can have wonderful programs that can fulfill and meet the children's needs. And I love when they come into these green spaces and they're actively engaging and they're sharing and they're learning with each other, and they're having conversations open around food and how food grows. This is something that's very important and that is needed, I think, in every school and learning environment. So that's the joy that I get out of what I do. I love what I do with working with kids, and I love my community. And I love my wonderful, wonderful group of people that I work with at Greater Newark Conservancy. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bridgette. And just to highlight something she has done recently where we're already seeing like a very huge impact is she's created this conscious consumption campaign where she is working to make the school cafeteria environment more welcoming, more inviting, and a lot less noisy for a lot of staff that are working in the cafeteria during that time. And during the first week, me and Pablo were there witnessing this firsthand. They were collecting food waste, so trying to minimize food waste as well and trying to be cleaner so that the custodian's not cleaning up as much. And apparently the second or third day, the custodian was barely sweeping up anything off the floor. Students were actually eating their whole meals, not taking one bite of apple and throwing it away. They were trying to eat as much of it as possible so they could have the least amount of food waste. And apparently they were so much quieter than they usually were. And when I was there, it was pretty loud. And apparently the custodians and everyone working there are just praising Bridgette and telling her just whatever she's doing, continue doing that, because they have never seen such a well-behaved cafeteria environment. So all 3 of our service members, Bridgette, Pablo, Julia, they have been making amazing strides in their schools, whether they're a first year or a second year. And we're super, super happy to have them. And and like I said, they are only here for 1 or 2 years. So if this is the type of work you're interested in, please reach out to me. You could, I'll attach my email in the chat box below so everyone could have a contact for me. But we are more than willing to help out anyone who's trying to have these farm to school programs. So I saw that there is a lot of questions. So I'm gonna go through them. Let me just scroll up to the top. I think this is the first one. All right, so could teachers, faculty visit your site without students first? Yes, so we are open to the public all year long. I always see families and people stopping by during the day. It's during regular business hours, so you could always stop on by. If our side gate isn't open, you could always come through the main gate. But we have grounds that you can walk around. If you find a staff member around, they are also willing to give you a tour. We have a very nice sized ground with outdoor learning center and education spots inside and out. So anyone is welcome to stop on by. And if you're interested in doing anything with students or attending programs in the future, I'll attach my email so you could reach out to me with that interest. All right, let me see. Seen a lot of shout outs to our food court team. Thank y'all. See if there are any more questions. I think that was it for the chat box. So does anyone have any final questions or want more highlights about what's some of the work that we have been doing at the Conservancy or at our schools?
I've got a question if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I have to say that it sounds like you guys are doing such a wonderful job, and on so many levels, you connect in a way to students that really not many schools have done or are doing or are just starting to do. So to really hear how in-depth your program is so wonderful, and everyone could use this kind of incorporation of food education into their curriculum in some way, shape, or form, which leads me to my question. What do you think, what method, what subject matter, what moment or material do you think most grabs that student who has never had that form of education? When you first see them, what holds them in, or what brings them in and say, come back again, this is amazing, we need this?
Well, I could answer, but do any of my service members want to chime in first?
I need a minute of thinking time. That's an amazing question.
Well, I know when I bring in lessons to the classroom that I really want to make a huge impact, I'm always trying to know who exactly I'm teaching when it comes to my students. So I'm trying to know their backgrounds and their cultures and everything. So like I said before, we do a lot of culturally appropriate lessons. So one thing that a specific moment where I saw a child's face light up for a specific lesson was when I was talking about soul food and Nigeria, and I mentioned a lot of Nigerian dishes, and my one student who was from Nigeria and who had the aspirations of opening up her own restaurant and doing it all plant-based because of my lessons, she was just so happy to have that lesson, and seeing her excitement, like I know for that specific day they were in a different classroom, and the teacher in that classroom was a little meaner, so the students were very quiet and not their usual selves, so it was a little weird. But like seeing her actually smile from that lesson, seeing her get really excited and wanting to like actually see her take down notes from the lesson and get her really excited about like the activity we were doing at the end was really great. And that like she came up to me after the class telling me more about more dishes she had that were from Nigeria, and it was really great to see that. So that was just one example from my end, is just getting to know your students and trying to connect to that somehow, whether you're bringing in a cultural dish or you're talking about a certain tradition. Those are ways that I always found that definitely really connected to home to the students.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what Patrick said. I know for me, when I first came into the role into both my schools, I really wanted to understand the students that I was working with, and getting to know the students, getting to know their likes, their dislikes, habits and different behaviors was very important for me, because I didn't just want to come down. I didn't want to come in with a top-down approach in terms of how I think they should be accepting this literature and this information. I wanted to come in really understanding the needs of the community members that I'm going to be seeing on a weekly basis. So it kind of started for me with polling students in different ways, just to get to understand things like eating habits. Do you sit down around the table at night with your family and eat? How is your dining experiences at home? What are some of the traditions that you have in your family around holidays? And what are those types of foods that you eat? Do you incorporate fruits and vegetables on your plate on a daily basis? And then who does that for you? Because unfortunately, we do have some students, like in my school, that pretty much they put their plates together themselves. If their parent is not home because they're working and they're committed, they may say, this is what you need to eat, or go in the refrigerator, and they're making them their plate themselves. So we have this diverse array of how students are eating and the nutritional needs that may be met or may not be met. And that helps me to kind of get an understanding of, okay, how do I need to lay out a model that's going to work for all these differences? But in the end, I know that I'm meeting the need of everyone in the room. And I feel it's important to really hear and understand the voices, because they do have voice and choice in the selections that they want and what the things that they prefer. And that really helped me a lot to engage with them and get to know them. And then once I started to introduce things, and even if they were new, because I was like, I'm gonna go big here. I'm gonna like pull out the most exotic stuff and I'm gonna bring, because I'm like, why not? They should have exposure to everything. And once I started to introduce those things into the classroom and being sensitive to needs and different things, and then just the presentation and approach altogether, it pretty much turned out really well because I got to know them first prior to just coming in with a program and putting it on them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been incredible to hear just how much you've done. Bravo to your team and the Greater Newark Conservancy. I'm going to go ahead and ask, because I don't see any more questions in the chat room. If there are any more final questions to everyone who is here, feel free to post in. Otherwise, we'll be wrapping up in a couple of minutes. My last question to you all is, what's the next project on the horizon? What event or activity is coming up next that your students are looking forward to?
I'll definitely let the service members answer this question.
Well, March is School Nutrition Month. So with the Student Nutrition Advisory Committee, I mentioned at one of my schools, we are already thinking ahead to March. So I actually took over both of Patrick's schools this year as a second-year service member. And last year he did a pep rally at this school, which was, we're still trying to think about how to build on that and build on this idea of a pep rally, of just getting excited and having, you know, even just the association of general excitement around nutrition. The harvest of the month for March is kale. So figuring out how to make that fun and make that accessible, you know, and make it something that students are excited to eat. I think I can figure out how to make kale chips replace Takis. That might be a little bit too confident, might have a little too much hubris there, but I think I can do it because I make spicy kale chips all the time. So, but figuring out, running all these ideas that I might have by my students is very important, and having that kind of like leadership of that committee with students at one of my schools is going to be very important in figuring out how to make, March a celebration.
Awesome. Wow. Well, congratulations to you guys, and good luck with all of the future projects, and especially your events in March. So it seems like we're finished. Do you guys have any closing comments or anything that you would like to say to the participants?
Yes, so I do want to mention, so I did drop in my email in the chat, so please feel free to reach out to me. And if you do want to join, we are trying to build a whole district support network for school gardens. Even if you're outside of Newark, we're trying to build really build on that. So please feel free to reach out to me. I work on monthly newsletters, whether it's in print or a virtual e-blast that really expands on a lot of the work that we do and opportunities, whether it's grants. We are actually ourselves have a school garden mini grant. If anyone is works in a school or works closely with the school, trying to expand or start a school garden, we have that application set up and ready on our website. The deadline is coming soon, but if you have any questions or any concerns or need a little extension, please feel free to reach out to me, pevans@citybloom.org. And hopefully we could share this, I could share my presentation and everything and all the resources we talked about as well after. But thank you everyone for stopping by for our program, and hopefully everyone got a little something out of it.
Well, thank you so much, all presenters. We appreciate your time here today. And just a few reminders before we close out our session for this evening. The evaluation link has been posted in the chat room. Please click on that and fill that out at your leisure. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see any presentations that you might have missed and not be able to attend live. Thank you again to the conference sponsors, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, our anonymous donor, and the Institute for Natural History Arts. Thank you very much. And with that, have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you all from Greater Newark Conservancy. You guys were amazing, and thank you so much for sharing your amazing world of knowledge, and good luck with everything in the future, and we'll be seeing you around.
So much. Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.